In the 1930s, Kazakhstan faced brutal Soviet repressions as a part of Stalin's policies. Forced collectivization led to mass confiscation of livestock and grain, causing a devastating famine that killed over 1 million Kazakhs. Industrialization disrupted international life, forcing many into labor. At the same time, Stalin's purges targeted enemies of the people, intellectuals, political leaders, and activists. Many, like Saken Seyfulin and Ilya Jansugurov, were executed or sent to labor camps. These repressions destroyed opposition and installed fear, ensuring Soviet control over Kazakhstan.
During the Soviet era, many Kazakh intellectuals and national leaders have suffered from repression. For example, Ahmet Petersunov and Saken Seyfulin, who worked hard to develop the Kazakh language education and the national, but however they were labeled as enemies of people. Petersunov, a linguist and a reformer, and Seyfulin, a poet and political leader, were both executed during the Great Purge in 1930s. The loss of these many and other authors and leaders are slowed down the progress of Kazakh nation. The Soviet government tried to weaken Kazakh identity by banning Kazakh language and changing the alphabet from Latin to Cyrillic. Traditional ways of life, such as nomadic pastoralism, were discouraged, and many scholars and teachers have been removed. Schools taught children in Russian and promoted Soviet ideology, making it harder for younger generation to stay connected into their Kazakh heritage. However, Kazakh identity survives through the oral traditional music and family customs. After gaining independence in 1991, Kazakhstan began working to restore its national cultural language and history. The return to Latin alphabet and the revival of the Kazakh tradition represent efforts to reconnect with the past and rebuild the national identity. Although the repression of Kazakh intellectuals left deep wounds and strength to the Kazakh people has helped their culture survive and grow. The history reminds us of the importance of protecting culture and the resilience of the human spirit.
The famine of the 1930s in Kazakhstan was a tragic result of forced collectivization imposed by the Soviet government. Kazakhs were pressured to abandon their nomadic lifestyle and join collective farms, while livestock, their main source of livelihood, was confiscated. These measures led to catastrophe. Between 1.3 to 1 million Kazakhs died, nearly a third of the population. The consequences were devastating, with deaths, disease outbreaks, a surge in orphans, and forced migration abroad. The famine shattered the demographic structure and severely impacted Kazakh culture and traditions. Stalin's repressions worsened the situation. Any resistance to collectivization was brutally suppressed. Arrests, exiles, and executions of community leaders and intellectuals destroyed the traditional social system of Kazakh villages. Famine and repression became tools of a single policy, suppressing national identity and establishing total control over the population. It is looking from the perspective of Kazakhs. However, according to Nicole, this famine had a purpose. He stated that it was sacrificial for the best of Moscow and Leningrad.
In the Soviet Union, many ethnic groups were deported to Kazakhstan, including Germans, Koreans, Ingush, and Tatars. The government accused them of being enemies and forced them to move to remote areas with harsh conditions. Life was very difficult. People had little food, poor housing, and no medical help. They lived under strict control and couldn't leave special settlements. Despite this, they helped develop Kazakhstan economy, culture, and education while keeping their own traditions. Their arrival made Kazakhstan a very diverse place.
The Algiers was established in 1938 and became one of the most brutal labor camps for women in the Soviet Union. Between 1938 and 1939, around 18,000 people were arrested, and 25,342 children were taken away from their mothers as part of Stalin's repressive policies. These women were accused of being enemies of the people, often for their association with political figures or because of their family ties. In the camp, these women were deprived of their civil rights and treated as criminals. They endured harsh conditions, working up to 14-15 hours a day in the fields growing vegetables. The 26th point of Karlak, which was a part of the Algiers, became one of the most productive units in the entire camp system. It was crucial for the war effort, producing military uniforms for the Soviet front. Additionally, the prisoners worked on land reclamation and farming. They cultivated 18 hectares of land and even constructed a power station. The mortality rate in Algiers was exceptionally high, with approximately 10,000 people dying between 1940 and 1950. Moreover, 1,507 children were born in the camp.
Stalin's repressions caused famine, killing over 1 million people, and destroyed Kazakhstan's intelligence. Thousands were arrested in labor camps like Karlak and Algiers. Prisoners forced brutal conditions, working long hours in extreme cold. Kazakh culture and languages were suppressed, and national identity was nearly arrested. Today, Kazakhstan honors the victims through memories, museums, and remembrance events, restoring historical justice and preserving its cultural heritage for future generations. This tragic history reminds us of the importance of freedom, human rights, and national identity.